And seeing as how New Year's is coming up, I resolved to bring you guys more than 3 episodes in a year. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is JEEVES-Y, your host, and welcome to the first Drawn to Obscurity episode of 2017. And only over 8 months after I promised I'd have more than 3 episodes out this year. Yeah, that ain't happening. Anyway, let's talk about some cartoons. Like this one.
Where is the master, sir? And what do you do every night, sir? Yes, sir! I saw you covered in blood.
This is an online short by the name of Blackford Manor. It's dark, funny, very atmospheric, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't already. However, if you do find yourself enjoying it, I've got some pretty bad news. This is all you're gonna get. Yes, despite the creator intending to tell a complete story, Blackford Manor never made it past its pilot state, which is a bummer because it clearly hints at things beyond this little short. It's unfortunate, but it doesn't mean all hope is lost. In 2015, a year after it was put online, a claim was made that the creator, Joo Kim, had been planning more episodes since its release. Perhaps someday, Blackford Manor can finally make the jump to being a full series. A bit of a stretch, perhaps, but hey, Cartoon Network's newest show, OKKO, started out as a little online short that came out a year before Blackford Manor, so there may be some hope yet. Nevertheless, it would certainly be an exception to the rule. For all the effort that goes into pitching a cartoon, whether it's through a pilot or a line of toys, a lot of ideas simply don't make it into production. Perhaps even worse, if a cartoon does go into production, it can be completely and utterly destroyed at a moment's notice. And that's exactly why we're here, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at a few cartoons so obscure that they were barely even a thing. Whether they deserve so much better or so much worse, these are 5 abandoned cartoons.
I am Prime, War Chief of the Shaka Confederacy.
Homo sapiens has minutes to live.
Our first cartoon on the list is Doctor Who: Scream of the Shaka. Released in 2003, this serialized Doctor Who story was a Flash animated production, uploaded weekly on BBCI's Doctor Who website as a part of the show's 40th anniversary. Starring Richard E. Grant as the 9th incarnation of the famous Time Lord, Scream of the Shaka sees the Doctor in Lancashire after his TARDIS takes him there for no apparent reason. Not long after meeting the soon-to-be companion, Allison, and her soon-to-be-ditched boyfriend, Joe, the Doctor gets to thinking,
Hey, there's something awfully screwy going on around here.
and soon discovers the Shaka, snake-like lava creatures who plan to overtake the Earth by destroying the planet's atmosphere and burning the surface. When Allison later gets taken by the Shaka, the Doctor, a bit reluctantly, sets out to save the Earth once more. What follows is 5 more episodes of, honestly, a pretty decent cartoon. It gives you everything you need to know, and leaves room for a bit of mystery regarding this Doctor, as well as having some really amusing moments.
What are you?
Mildly annoyed.
You're insane. What do you think you can do?
Resist them, surprise them. Oh, and possibly perform a few show tunes. So, hush!
Despite the noticeably stiff animation, Richard E. Grant's performance shines through, giving us a sassy and charismatic Doctor. He's often stern, a bit rude, but leaves room for a bit of goofiness.
Excuse me. I hope I don't taste of boot polish. That's it! Take me home, big boy!
The supporting cast also does a respectable job, with Oscar nominees Sophie Okonedo giving a good bit of personality to Allison, and Derek Jacobi providing some fantastic line delivery as the Doctor's other companion.
Ah, my dear Doctor, where have you been? Tell me that you haven't done something foolish.
The Master, who's sporting an android body this time around, and if you want to know why that particular fact matters, then look it up. Being the Doctor's arch-nemesis, it might seem a bit weird to make the Master his companion, but oddly enough, this kinda works. His mischievous, pessimistic personality, combined with the fact that he's basically being forced to tag along with the Doctor, makes for an interesting situation and definitely makes for an interesting companion.
Why did I choose continuing existence? Listening to him being right all the time when I had the option of a slow, painful death.
However, despite the, again, very good performance of the main cast, there was just something off-putting about the story in all 6 episodes, and that something is the overall production quality. For starters, the animation. Just look at it. Actually, as far as being a Flash animated cartoon in 2003, this is by no means the worst, but it still looks incredibly cheap. For example, the stiff animation I mentioned earlier, which doesn't just apply to the characters' body movements, but to their faces as well. Whenever the characters are having a conversation, the camera only knows 2 positions, from the neck up, and even closer. This is presumably to make up for the lack of emotion from the facial animations, and so they don't have to show any awkward body movements. I understand this necessity as the crew behind this were likely working on a small budget, but it's still pretty distracting. And the distractions don't stop there because the audio can also be an issue.
Go away! There's nothing here!
Please, just run! They're making us do this!
Get back!
Nearly every noise and sound effect is incredibly loud, unbalanced, and just plain annoying at times. Even so, my feelings on this story remain the same. I rather enjoyed it. So let's get to the point. What happened? Why am I saying this cartoon was abandoned when all of its 6 planned episodes got made and uploaded as intended? While it is true that everything regarding this set of episodes went off without a hitch, the story was also supposed to be a direct continuation of the original series, with Richard E. Grant's portrayal being announced as the official 9th Doctor. There were even sequels being planned before Scream of the Shaka was even put online. But shortly after this, a certain other Doctor Who series was being planned for 2005, and the quote-unquote official 9th Doctor's existence was put to the side. It's not such a big deal, but I do find it pretty sad, and hilarious, that the BBC would rather keep most of the 1996 movie canon, but would rather erase this Doctor and his adventures completely. However, despite the impending retcon, it wasn't all over for Grant's Doctor just yet. In 2004, an official short story was published on BBC's Cult of Vampires page. It's obviously non-canon now, but it is interesting to see that this Doctor got at least one more official story. As for Richard E. Grant's future in Doctor Who, he and many of the cast actually went on to make appearances in the current series, including Derek Jacobi, who, once again, got to play the Master. And this fellow here?
Get off the fence! Get off the fence! Get away!
That is none other than David Tennant, otherwise known as Doctor Number 10.
Oh yes!
Would this Doctor have been as great as the others? It's hard to say, but judging by this story alone, it would have been interesting to see. But even before Scream of the Shaka, there was an interest to bring back the show in animated form. As far back as 1990, just 1 year after the show originally ended, a little company known for some good cartoons and a lot of really bad ones, decided that they wanted to have a go at the franchise. And thus, we have our next entry, Nelvana's Doctor Who. As far as the plot of the series is concerned, very little is known about what this cartoon would have been like, other than that, like Scream of the Shaka, it was intended to be a continuation of the original series, featuring a new Doctor and the usual female companion, foiling the plans of a very Saturday morning cartoon-looking Master, complete with his very own pet henchman, a giant freaking cybernetic bird. Although Nelvana's cartoons tend to, vary in terms of quality, I have to say, they did a pretty good job here. I really like the designs they were going for in these pieces of concept art, which is good because this is probably the closest we'll get to knowing what the series would have looked like. From the TARDIS, different locations, and the various vehicles and machines, everything about the art style from comic artist and animator Ted Bastian has this certain distinguished look to it. Much better than expected from the people responsible for this. Maybe it's just me, but that big question mark on the Doctor's jacket is a nice touch. It's so dumb yet somehow so cool at the same time. One of the weirdest design choices though, apart from the over-the-top Master, has to be this super beefed up Dalek. But I suppose it's not so weird when you consider that this was going to be aimed at kids. I mean, just tell me that this wasn't designed to be a toy. It is without a doubt that a Doctor Who series would have been insanely beneficial to Nelvana, even if it sucked. Unfortunately, despite production going quite smooth actually, with storyboards being drawn out and approximately 4 stories already having been written, the whole project fell apart twice as fast as it came together, after a competing studio contacted the BBC and said that they could do just as good as Nelvana for a much lower price. Needless to say, the BBC pulled out immediately, and the project pretty much ended right then and there.
I just can't believe this! You whore!
All that hard work? Gone. With nothing but concept art to show for it. And since it'd be about 13 years after that before any Doctor Who cartoon got made, nothing became of the other studio's concept anyway.
Fantastic.
It's a real shame that there's so little we know about this cartoon, but maybe in the future we'll have some more info about what could have been.